right, so we have talked and talked about all the proposed legislation. We've got our last panel today with Diane Boyle, the resident Cajun at NAIFA, to talk about the changes to grantor trust that are being proposed right now. So it's a busy year on Capitol Hill, and Diane has got her workload for her. So I'm going to leave it to Diane.
Great, thanks, Carla. It's been fun. Impact promised you that you'd hear from experts, sharper tips and strategies related to advanced practices issues, as well as identifying some potential stumbling blocks, help offer you some solutions. The presenters earlier definitely delivered some tips, and that was fantastic. Sadly, I'm here to share a potential devastating stumbling block, and Andrew kind of tipped that off, and that's Congress. And what we're seeing now is, whether you like it or not, these 535 individuals can change the way that you do business. And I want to focus on one of the many provisions in the reconciliation package. That's the Build Back Better proposal, or it's a reconciliation package. You'll hear it go by different names, but it's a currently $3.5 trillion package that covers a whole host of things. The one provision that I want to talk about today that Andrew and Scott actually just discussed, there are some changes to grantor trust laws. And they're changes that could really gut the use of these trusts in estate planning situations by including life insurance and other trust assets in the taxable estate. Particular concern is the provision that would apply the rule to new contributions to existing trusts. You have an existing trust that would not get new contributions, it would be grandfathered. These rules would adversely impact irrevocable life insurance trusts, including those existing trusts that contemplate continuing premium payments for the life insurance contained in those trusts. This group, and you just heard from Andrew and Scott firsthand, that grantor trusts are effective planning tools for many purposes. And these dramatic changes that are being proposed are of great concern to NAIFA. The proposed changes in the grantor trust are of significant concern to many NAIFA members and their clients. If they have these trusts already established, we're hearing from them and they want to know what's going on. The weak, ineffective grandfather provisions that are included in the proposal.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you turn up your speaker a little bit or your mic a little bit? I think people are having a hard time hearing you.
Right. Okay, hang on just a sec. Let me go through the mechanics. Is that any better?
A little bit, maybe just talk. I mean,
I'm going to talk louder because I can't get the volume to work on it. And I did have some issues. It's not letting me move the little dot. So I'm going to shout at you. If I get too loud, let me know, because otherwise I can just use my outside voice and we should be fine.
Perfect.
The proposed changes to the grantor trust are significant concern to many members. As I was saying, the grandfather provisions that are in place, there was an attempt to grandfather because you really don't want to upset the planning that's already been done. Unfortunately, these offer little or no comfort because when you're talking about the use with life insurance, you still have to continue to pay those premiums. And it's the continuation of paying those premiums that sort of set it out of whack. So again, grandfathering doesn't really work for our purposes. ILETs have been used for decades to help families, and families of all sizes, not just the rich. It addressed the expenses, the income taxes, the state taxes, the gift taxes that are all due at death. And life insurance policy inside these trusts provide the necessary liquidity for family heirs without the death proceeds themselves being included in the deceased taxable estate. So the reconciliation rules to the grantor trust would undo that planning for many of the existing trusts. Making the rule retroactive in many instances leaves little recourse for correction, forcing families to liquidate closely held family businesses, family farms, and other assets to cover these costs that are going to be due at death. The grantor trust proposals are among some of the most concerning and complex that we see. The changes, however, to the grantor trust rules are projected to raise a relatively small amount compared to some of the other proposals. Raises approximately $7 billion over 10 years to offset some of the other spending provisions. So it really doesn't raise that much money, and that's something that we talk about when we're meeting with lawmakers too. Simply stated, the grantor trust issue and reconciliation needs more consideration. And NAIFA is addressing this issue with lawmakers. As Andrew said, the companies, and there's a whole host of us in the industry that have lobbyists, have professionals that are working with members of Congress. Sadly, our reconciliation list of corrections is long. We've shared various concerns, including grantor trust issues with legislators, and have been activating NAIFA members in key legislative districts based off the different topics that we have concerns with. Since the reconciliation process is not one in which all members of Congress have the same level of influence, we've not mobilized all members. So you haven't seen a massive distribution of mobilization activity or requests from NAIFA. And it's because the leadership within Congress are those that are making the negotiations and are having the challenges. Where you can leverage other members is to make sure that they're weighing in with leadership. So we've taken a staged approach on how we're doing this. This audience, you, are ideal to escalate the efforts a bit this week by expressing your concern with the changes to the grantor trust, especially the impact that it would have on ILETs and the weak, ineffective grandfather provisions that are there. As the legislation works its way through the process, and it's going to be a long and difficult process, it'll remain crucial that we keep our communication lines open and share the stories of how these changes would negatively impact your clients. That's what the members of Congress need to hear from you. And think, what is the best story to illustrate that concern or the negative impact to your clients? Think of the planning for that special needs child or a local family business that employs others in the community. Those are the types of stories, should you engage, that you really want to share. That's what they want to hear. The Build Back Better Act raises concerns about the implications to Main Street businesses, married couples, the ability to plan for their financial and retirement security for themselves, their families, and their employees, beyond just the grantor trust issue. Some of the issues that NAIFA's been following and it's been involved in include, business taxes, some new reporting requirements for financial institutions, mandatory retirement plans, contribution limitations, conversion exclusions, forced distributions, state taxes and constraints, and obviously the changes to the grantor trust. We have new and expanded government leave and health programs that are concerning. So what I would say to this group is, if you would like to send a message to your legislator, you can visit NAIFA's Advocacy Action Center. There you're going to hit the Take Action button. You're going to customize what we've designed as sort of a template letter that covers a whole host of issues. And you can pick and choose which of those really speak to you and where you feel that you may have a story or a client that would be particularly impacted by that provision, and expound on that. That's where you really want to tell your story about why these provisions would impact you and your clients and your business, and put that together and get that to your legislator. In your career, you've helped families and businesses, individuals reduce risk, protect their assets. You help clients who are the lawmakers' constituents, and that's what is really important to share, is to remember your clients are their constituents. That's why they want to hear from you. And so you've helped them to plan for and to reach their financial goals. The lawmakers need to hear from you about how these provisions directly and negatively impact, again, try to focus the Main Street business angle, individuals and families that are their constituents, so that they understand and know that there are changes to be made, especially when you're looking at the grantor trust issue. As I said, it raises a small amount of money in the way of an offset compared to some of the others. So if they start hearing that there's concerns there, then there may be opportunities for them to look at what changes can be made should there be a reconsideration of this proposal. As I said, the congressional leadership is who's really working on this. And right now you've seen in the news, the size of the package is $3.5 trillion package. They're trying to get that closer to 1.5 trillion, 2 trillion. There are conversations, as a matter of fact, right about now, the progressive Democrats should be meeting with the White House to discuss what some of their concerns are. Later today, the moderate Democrats will be going to the White House, sharing what their concerns are, and then leadership really needs to pull together and negotiate what package will be able to pass both the House and the Senate in order to be enacted. And so they're looking now at how do you design this package. That's why it's really timely if this issue is of interest to you to go ahead and begin writing it. As I said, NAIFA is your source to amplify your voice. We've been doing that. We do it in a very strategic manner. It's why we encourage, over and over again, you'll hear us say, develop relationships with your lawmakers. And this is why there are certain lawmakers that have greater influence in this process than others. And so we're able to tap those individuals that have developed those relationships and say, hey, now's your time. It's your lawmaker that has the ability to address this issue. We need you to weigh in and explain what the concerns are. If your member isn't somebody that's negotiating, a lot of times we hear from some of our members who have a Republican member of Congress, and the Republicans are actually not really participating in the negotiation of this package because you're trying to get the Democrats who have the majority in the House and even split in the Senate, but the Vice President breaks the tiebreaker there, to get consensus within the Democratic Party. So they haven't reached out to Republicans on this, and the Republicans have basically said no. But where you have an opportunity is, if you have a Republican member, is to make them aware of what the concerns are. So what they can do is sort of amplify what those concerns are, bring some of those to light, and then as the negotiators are going through and trying to figure out what do we keep, what do we set, what stays, they're hearing sort of a surround sound of what issues maybe shouldn't be part of this, especially when we know that we're skinning the package down. Some of the other issues within the reconciliation package that NAIFA has been working with Congress to make sure that they understand where we see some opportunities either for significant improvement or for additional consideration, rewriting, where some of our concerns are. One would be removing any of the benefits of Section 199A. Many of our members operate as pass-through businesses. Private and family owned businesses are more heavily taxed than some of the C corps. And removing those benefits would only worsen that disparity between the two. So we've said, no, this is something that's very concerning to us. The requirement for financial institutions to track and submit information to the IRS. We have significant privacy and cost concerns with the requirement. If financial institutions are to track and submit to the IRS on information on transactions for every account above a de minimis threshold of $600, that's concerning. Negotiators have already started saying that they're now looking to increase that. The amount that was originally put, as I said, was a de minimis of $600, and now saying they'll use a de minimis of $10,000. And although increasing the de minimis to $10,000 is a lot less objectable, it's still a flawed assumption, and it will not significantly reduce the scale or scope of this new IRS program, something that's very concerning to our members and something that we've been talking to lawmakers about. New and expanded government programs. There's a paid leave program, a medical leave program, expanded health benefits, and they sort of missed the opportunity to grow, to build on and to grow the existing private sector solutions. And so we think that there should be additional consideration there, that there are opportunities to really have a public-private partnership in some of those instances. New mandates on small employers, so employers with 5 or more employees who've been in existence for 2 or more years would be required to offer a retirement savings plan. The mandate, would place a pretty hefty burden on small businesses. And while we agree that more Americans absolutely should be saving for retirement, we don't believe that burdening the small or family-owned businesses is really the right path forward, especially at that threshold of 5 or more employees. That's a really small business. Congress, our recommendation was more that they should reconsider this provision in favor of legislation like the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Neal. He has legislation, it's the Securing the Retirement Act of 2020. It passed out of House Ways and Means Committee unanimously. Or legislation that was introduced by Senators Cardin and Portman. So it's a bipartisan effort on expanding retirement security. We think that's a better way to go. We've been questioning sort of the prudence of passing this legislation that would burden small businesses and individuals with more mandates and more taxes after they just spent the last year, almost 2 years, struggling to survive in really an unprecedented situation with the pandemic. Some members of Congress are calling for a more targeted approach in the Build Better Act. We've seen that. Doing maybe just a few things well, rather than many things with expiration dates that make reliance uncertain and confusing. And we're inclined to agree with sort of that approach. Let's figure out how do we have a more targeted approach. They said this reconciliation bill covers everything from climate to a whole host of issues just within our space and the financial services industry. We're asking Congress to support initiatives that ensure that public policy doesn't make it harder or more expensive for Americans to plan for financial security and retirement security for themselves, their families, and their employees. And so again, I guess what I would leave with you is, if this is something that is of interest to you or of concern to you, if you want to be able to leverage some of the techniques that Andrew and Scott just discussed, you're really going to need to make sure that Congress doesn't adopt this provision regarding the grantor trust, because it does change what you would be able to do and how you could use those tools to help your clients. And we put a link in the chat that has our Advocacy Action Center. If you go there, you can select the reconciliation method. It'll automatically pull up if you're a NAIFA member. It will make you sign in. So as you go to the Action Center, on the right-hand side, you'll see a login. You don't have a password. It just needs to be the email that you have on file with NAIFA. It will pull up your information. It will pull up who your 2 senators are, who your representative is. It will give you a sample template. As I said, we really want to make sure that when you're sharing your stories, that you're sharing what is going to be the most impactful with your legislators. Again, pick that client that is in the community that maybe is an employer. Pick someone that was planning for a special needs child so that they understand the real, humanize the stories for them. Let them understand that the policy that they're discussing, what are the real human implications and concerns, and put those in your letter to write to them as to why this is something that really a little more thought is needed on, as far as how it would impact your clients and their constituents. You can go ahead and take action directly from there. As I said, it's a template, and the template that we have has the list of concerns within the reconciliation package. If you want to write on all of them, that's great. If you want to pick and choose a few within the list and really share a story that's tied directly to that, that works as well. If you have any questions, I'm here to help. I actually am going to scoot in a minute and head to the hill, but I am very responsive. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. And Carla, with that, I am going to wrap it up and let you take over. If we have any questions, I'd be happy to answer a few before I need to scoot out of here. But thank you so much for having me. I hope that you have a great day tomorrow. I hope you're picking up more tips than stumbling blocks. And I hate that my sunny presentation is the one that goes, oh yeah, it's great, but
Why we put you at the end of the first day and not at the end of everything.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I don't end on this. But you know, that's the ability of this industry, Colin. That's what's so wonderful is when we get involved, we actually do make changes. We are seeing, and there are negotiators that are having conversations. And when we participate in those conversations, we can actually see positive results. So there's a lot of negative, but I'm going to end on a we can do it kind of note.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for our first day of Impact. Again, we've got 2 more days, Tuesday and Wednesday. Tomorrow is going to be jam-packed as well with 3 speakers on various topics. Again, same caliber as today, really great conversations and great folks that will be presenting. So if you have any questions, please holler, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks for coming. Bye, Dan. Bye.